everyone, and welcome to the Changemakers podcast, where we chat with interesting and engaging individuals here and far about change, making change, living change in their own lives, how they've experienced unimaginable change, and innovative ways people uplift the lives of others. We chat about triumphs over tragedies, mindset matters, and how we live out our life's purpose inspirationally. So please join us to be inspired and empowered to be the change you want to see in this world. You know, we can all be change makers in our lives. Here's to the change you're about to bring forth. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us for another episode of our Changemakers podcast. Changemakers works and interviews individuals who are making extraordinary changes in their lives and in the lives of others. This morning, I could not be more grateful and excited to speak and to talk with Miss Teressa Moore Griffin of Spirit of Purpose. And Miss Moore, has been CEO and founder of Spirit of Purpose since 1977. So she is clearly a master, an international expert in self-awareness and personal growth. So welcome this morning, Teressa.
Good morning. Thanks so much for having me.
We are so delighted to have you talk with us today about your professional journey and some of the things that has gotten you there. So if you would just tell us a little bit about yourself, your professional passion, and a few insights into your professional journey.
That's a really big question for a woman who is sitting in the category of senior at this point. So I've had a good long run at all of this. Happy to say that I have spent some time inside of corporations. I worked initially in the retail industry, then the financial industry and pharmaceuticals before I began my independent practice as a consultant, mainly focused initially on OD, organization development, and have been doing that work mostly in the US, but also really around the world, which has been an absolute privilege and a joy to do the work in different contexts and figure out what works and what doesn't, because our US way of operating, our Western way of operating doesn't fit in all places. So there's so much learning and finding ways to be with people who are from other places and find a way to have an impact. Mm-hmm. So that's what my life has been about.
So share with us, I know that in many of our careers, if we are in it long enough, that what it begins as is not what it continues to look like over the long term. And that's one of the beauties, I think, about the freedoms of choice that we have and the unanticipated blessings of traveling a particular path. And so explain to us what it is now that you do and what brings your greatest joy to your work.
I finally feel that I am at a stage in my life and career where I have something of value to contribute. And mostly what it is at this point in time is bringing myself, me being me, bringing me to whatever work I'm doing. Because I find that mostly what I do is I help people be comfortable being themselves and bringing the best of who they are naturally to whatever work or task they're involved in. And technical expertise matters, of course. We all have areas in which we have to bring our technical competency to the work, but the foundation on which every bit of work occurs is the person who is doing the talking, who is doing the influencing and the convincing or the explaining or whatever the task is. Mm-hmm. And so I feel that now my focus really is on helping people learn how to be their own best self and clear away the clutter that impedes that from happening. We have
Amazing.
more freedom. Yeah.
So do you have what I say oftentimes, a profile of the ideal client? Does that business model fit in especially well in a particular business sector, or how do what is it that clients look like when they come to you?
It's interesting. Most of my clients are senior level executives, in part because the services that I provide, for many of them, their companies will fund those services. And so I work with a lot of senior leaders in helping them show up more authentically, more genuinely, and with more heart for the work they do and the people with whom they work.
Mm-hmm.
I also do a fair amount of work, like you, Kimberly, with women who are in the professional services realm. Specifically, I do some coaching in a program where women leaders come from the field of medicine and from all of the realm of STEM, and help them to let go of their limiting beliefs, their limiting self-perceptions, so that they are the strong leaders that they need to be.
Oh, that's so invaluable. To move people to see what they don't already know about themselves, right? I mean, it's just like opening up a whole new chapter of a dimension of their true selves when they can get out of their own way.
And you said it so well. It really is, I think, in large part about us getting out of our own way and us not limiting what we see as our capacity or our ability to handle certain situations. And often for women, it's about saying yes a little bit earlier than we think we might be ready to say yes, and allowing ourselves the space to grow into whatever role we're in. I think we often, as women, think that we need to be ready now,
Mm-hmm.
like more than ready, in fact, before we can say yes to opportunity. And I think that's a limiting belief.
It absolutely is. I I know that there are science and reports that show just in a job or a professional opportunity that men will apply for a position if they are basically 60% prepared and qualified, whereas compared to women, they won't even apply for a position unless they can 100% check off all the boxes of the job description.
Exactly.
So it's right there, behind the game, behind the eight ball, if you will. And it's unfortunate because we all can't know everything about everything, but in one of the things that I study a lot is the difference between the growth mindset versus the fixed mindset.
Mm-hmm.
And the growth mindset informs us that we may not know everything at the moment, or we don't have but we have the confidence in ourselves to know that we'll figure it out, and that we will find the resources to learn and grow for what we need to know when we need to know it.
And I think that combination that you just described is so right, that we will learn it and we will find the resources to help us in that process. And for all of us, even as we get to looking at where we are today, and I think about my own life and career, there have been so many people who have helped me along the way. Sometimes in very large and significant ways. They gave me a chance to do something that they knew I wasn't ready for, and I did too. But their faith and belief in me set them up to say yes, or to extend an invitation that I accepted.
Right.
Knees knocking, heart racing, right? Feeling unsure, all of that, but still taking the chance to say yes. So resources come in the way of training, but I think in large part in the way of people who stand at our back and at our side, helping us along the way.
That's so beautiful. That's so beautiful. Yes, I absolutely 100% agree with you. Also, and this is something that I've seen in your writings and your teachings that I completely embrace for our clients, and I would love to have you speak to, and that is the importance of taking ourselves and aligning our energy with
Mm.
our intention.
Hmm.
Oh, I would love to hear from you what that is and why it's important.
Yeah, I mean, I'm smiling as I hear you say those words. They feel so good in me, so right. To
Yes.
it really is the idea of that alignment of our energy, which happens to be our emotions, our feelings, our deeper beliefs, aligning that with our conscious intention, the things that we are thinking about, the goals that we have in mind. When the belief in self, the energy, and the goals are not aligned, then what you get is a high quality mixed result, and oftentimes a disappointing result. But when we get our goals and our belief in ourself, literally feeling emotionally like, I can make this happen, I believe this will work for me. When you get those two things aligned, then you have the full power at your back. That really is the wind at your back, or the wind beneath your wings, however you want to phrase it,
Mm-hmm.
that will propel you forward.
Mm,
But the conflict of, I don't think I can, but I want it.
mm-hmm.
If you think about that, the I don't think I can is the step back. I want it is the step forward. And
Mm-hmm.
if we step back and step forward, what we end up with is standing in the same place,
Yes.
right?
So, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely 100%. So I guess the question that if I were a listener and not a student of all of these things, I would be asking you, so how do I move myself in the direction of aligning my energy with what I want?
It's an inner job,
Yeah.
is really what it is in my experience. So, a large part of what I have done for myself and I do with my clients is we talk about in that private, confidential relationship, that coaching relationship, we talk about what are your goals
Mm-hmm.
and where do you have belief that really is propelling you forward. And we explore those places where there isn't alignment with goal and belief, goal and emotional conviction that you can do it. And we begin to explore, why does that lack of belief exist? And oftentimes, and you know this, it is rooted in our childhood, in some early experience where someone said, they can do that, those people, but you can't.
Yeah.
That's not for us. Or one client that I was working with not long ago, exceptional woman, executive. And she was in a place where she was feeling like it wasn't right to compete for anything in her professional life. And what we discovered in our conversations about why that belief existed in her was because she had an older sister, and this woman, my client, was the sister who was high achiever academically, high achiever athletically. And she, as in her way, bested her sister, and her parents taught her to not show up in that way,
Mm.
to downplay her accomplishments, and to not sort of boast about what she had done. And in that language, it really is to own what she had done. And that early lesson in her life taught her to mute her
Mm.
accomplishments, to not talk about them because that was bragging, and
Mm.
to not do anything that would seem like competition and cause, quote unquote, cause others to feel less than.
Oh,
She was carrying that into her career as a professional, and it was harming her, it was holding her back.
And it's just so heartbreaking to see that, you know, for folks like us who are total empaths and have been trained and sensitized, you know, to see beneath the levels, right?
Yes,
Of the, you know, the actual dialogue, and to understand what could be motivating factors or self-sabotaging behaviors, and understanding, you know, the tremendous potential and capabilities of these highly you know, highly experienced and highly capable women, you know, professionals, leaders, etc., to see that they still in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s have never come to a place of awareness, even to say, this does not serve me, this is not who I am, right?
exactly. And, you know, I think about, as you talk, I think about the imposter syndrome, which is
Mm,
something that plagues so many women and people of color, quite frankly. And being a person of color, I know that for a fact. Um, it really is made up of false beliefs.
mm,
It is cultural projections that we've taken on and we're counting as true, right? About what people like me can and can't do. And my work is to help people uncover exactly what those lies are
mm,
and to find a way to let go of them.
mm.
And it's through conversation and looking at the results in your life that you get clues about what they are and where they are for you.
Well, that I couldn't agree more. Which brings me to one of the questions that I want to ask, and that is, and we've spoken about this briefly, but years ago, I absolutely fell in love with your book,
Hmm.
Lies That Limit. And quite frankly, it transformed my life, how I saw myself, and what the work that I needed to do internally to help me accomplish and even see what was possible in my own life. And so, you know, for that, I am eternally grateful to you, Teressa, for having that gift to put down pen to paper to unfold and illuminate those things that do create the lies that limit. But I would love for you to share with our listeners what lies is an acronym for,
Hmm.
and how limiting beliefs, and maybe explain more what that actually means, can derail our lives, or at least hold us back from reaching a more fulfilling human experience.
Yeah. Well, you know, that book, I resisted writing it for a very long time
Mm.
because, listen to this, I didn't believe that I had much to say. Right? So that's a limiting belief that I
Yes.
carried. And then finally, I thought, you know what? This has been an inspiration that has lived in me. I'm going to try my hand and see what happens. And the writing of the book happened. It's almost as if the book wrote itself once I gave myself permission to
Mm.
start. And that concept of lies that limit, lies being untruths.
Hmm.
And it also means that it is the labels, the illusions, the excuses, and the stories that we let limit ourselves. And those four categories are a lot of how lies tend to show up in our lives. We label ourselves, or other people label us, and we buy it. We have illusions or false ideas and false images about life and reality and what we can do and can't do. We make excuses for ourselves or for other people that turn out to be limiting, or we tell self-limiting stories over and over about all of the I can'ts, and no one in my family ever, and women can't. We
Yeah.
perpetuate the story. So that's the lies stands for. That's the acronym: labels, illusions, excuses, and stories.
Mm, mm, mm. Oh gosh. Well, I'm going to give you an opportunity at the end of our interview to share how folks can get a copy of that book in their hands, because it is absolutely transformational for those who want to boost and infuse power into their lives, as far as the developing the I can, I will, watch me mantra, which is how we could all live our lives. And
Absolutely. And that's what it takes.
it does. And so I know we have just a few more minutes, and this is so extraordinarily fascinating and nourishing to me, as I know it is to our readers. There's a couple of different topics that I'd like to touch on, and I know that this is part of your body of work. But one of the questions is, and both of us have experienced this, in corporate America, so many leaders and those who run companies do not communicate the value of wellness and taking care of ourselves, physically, emotionally, spiritually. Now more than ever, I see in my clients' businesses that they are beginning to have, quote, mindfulness, maybe workshops once in a while, or those are now becoming more in vogue. But I remember very vividly in my corporate experience how challenging it was to create boundaries over my work life.
Mm-hmm.
And as high achieving individuals, women who are working so hard to succeed in their career while honoring their family obligations, what advice might you give as far as steps that they may take to fill and keep their cup full, spiritually and internally, that they can continue to give, as most women are givers?
Yeah, that's a part of our beauty, is that quality of giving and caring, and I'll call it nurturing. But one of the priorities that we have to set is around self-nurturing. Because when we don't self-nurture, what happens is we are giving from a container that is only half full or close to empty. And when we give from a container that's full, then we actually have more to give, and we are less self-depleted.
Right.
So our work is first, and it sounds counterintuitive, but first to focus on self, and to give ourselves enough sleep, to give ourselves enough downtime and private time. I'm a person who needs quiet time and a little time to myself every day, even if it's only 15 minutes or 20 minutes. And for me, that time is often a time where I will just sit and in a quiet space, and I'll focus on my breathing, if nothing else. And for me, it's got that meditative quality that matters so much and helps me recharge and replenish. The other thing that I find with a lot of my women clients is we carry a lot of shoulds in our heads.
Yes.
We should do this. To be a great mother, I should do this for my kids. To be a great partner, I should do this for my partner. I should do this at the workplace. And a lot of our shoulds are actually illusions. And they turn out to be excuses around how we drive ourselves into overwork. There are a lot of things that we think we should do that we should actually delegate to other people. A quick story, if I could, Kimberly. You have time for that?
Absolutely.
This is a client of mine, and she had a 6-year-old daughter at this point in time. And every evening she was complaining about how every evening when she gets home, she makes dinner because she feels she should have a hot meal on the table like her mother had for her when she was a kid. And that she should get her daughter organized for school in the morning. And when I double clicked on the get your daughter organized at night for school the next day, yes, what does that look like? Well, it's homework. Great. Parents should support their kids with doing homework. That's a reasonable should. Or some adult can help to support the kids in getting homework done. And she went on to talk about how she lays out her daughter's clothes for the next day. And then she said, and every morning we have a fight because she never wants to wear what I've put out the night before. So I said, why are you putting out clothing for a 6-year-old who really doesn't want to wear what you choose anyway?
Mm-hmm.
What if, and I think this is always a great little question, the what if question.
Mm-hmm.
What if you let her choose the night before? So she started doing that. And that was a task because in the evening, they would spend 15, 20, 30 minutes arguing over what to wear tomorrow, only to get up tomorrow morning, have
Wow.
more frustration around that. So I think that that's a small example, but I think that there are so many ways in which we do things as women for other people that they really could do and would be well served to do for themselves. So if we just examine our lives and say, what can I let go of doing and delegate to someone else?
Right.
We would give ourselves a little more time and space for self.
You're absolutely right. And sometimes I think about the quote, I think it was Aristotle way long ago, but I think it said, the unexamined life is not worth living.
Yes.
And it has never been easier than in this time that we live, that we are so busy being busy and on this treadmill of daily commitments that we tie ourselves into, that we do not take the time to examine and assess, what am I doing here?
Yes.
Why am I putting myself in this box where there's no time for me, or there's no time for my health, and there's not a minute for me to breathe.
Yes.
And I think now, I mean, I lived that life for a while, and I mean, ultimately, and I think it's worth saying that living that life over a period of time is, we women warriors, who think that we can do everything and, do it doing it backwards in high heels. And for some reason, we feel like we have something to prove. But when we get ourselves through perhaps a miracle, or reading a book like Lies That Limit, or some pivotal moment in our lives, that we begin to clear away the shoulds or the ought tos, and we start honoring ourselves, then we look at the craziness that we've bought into.
Mm-hmm.
And so, moving that down, that will ultimately manifest into physical and or mental breakdown.
Yes, it will. It will. And, I'm really a proponent of making conscious choices, because technology can drive us to be on that treadmill, because we're accessible and stuff is showing up and we want to be responsive and look like we're on top of things and blah, 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 blah.
Right.
So we end up being driven by these external forces, very impersonal forces, instead of checking within self, making conscious choices about what I'm going to give my energy and attention to at this point in time, and carving out a little bit of that time and space for self so that we can strengthen and replenish ourselves.
So important. And in our last few minutes, I want to kind of jump on that. And that is remembering when I worked a corporate job. It was a career, it's been part of my career. But when I didn't feel like my time was all mine,
Mm-hmm.
and now, you add the constant bombardment of emails and text and calls and deadlines, and so many demands on our time daily. You and I know how incredibly critical it is to stay present. How does one do that and balance all the external demands and, technologies that never ever stop?
Yeah, one of the things that you don't know about me, Kimberly, so here's a little bit of new information, is that I sit on the board, I chair the board of an organization called the Institute for Core Energetics. And it is really, really a wonderful training program. And we do some weekend workshops that are very helpful to people, because a lot of the techniques that we teach in core, I'm also trained as a core energetics therapist, is a way of helping us be present, be here now, be in your body, grounded, centered, tuned into the present moment. Because a part of what I think scatters us is that our focus is split. We talked about aligned energy and intention.
Hmm.
We can check that alignment in any moment. I'm sitting in a meeting and I may be looking at people, but am I present to what's happening? Or is my energy elsewhere?
Yes.
So this idea of being energetically and intellectually head and heart aligned at all times applies not only to our lives and the things that we're trying to accomplish, but moment by moment it applies. I think people could help themselves slow down heart rate, lower blood pressure, decrease anxiety if we were to, as I am in this conversation with you, I'm sitting in my chair and I am aware of my body. I'm aware of my butt against the chair, my back against the chair, and I'm breathing. And I'm paying attention to that part of me while I'm also paying attention to the conversation that we're having and the content that I want to present. So my energy and my focus are here in this moment, centered with you. I will worry about what comes next, and there's a lot that comes next today. I'll worry about that when I get off the phone. And my intent is to carry this presence, this sense of presence and centeredness into the next activity that I'm doing, where that's the only thing that I'm doing. I'm not multitasking while I'm in my next meeting.
That is so powerful. I mean, it's just so powerful. It's just, in my view, it's just a different, more healthy way of being who we are as human beings, not human doings.
Yes.
Yeah.
One of the interesting things for me as a side point here, but very much connected, is when I'm present in the moment to where I am, who I'm with, what I'm doing, I get a lot more data about what's going on in the room than when I'm sitting in the chair, partially focused on the conversation, but also thinking about or doing something else, texting, emailing, planning for the next meeting, whatever. I get more data that helps me to do a better job in this conversation, that helps me to see more about where people stand around an issue or a topic than when my energy and intentions aren't aligned and my focus is split.
Yes. Yes. So I would say we should all try that, and risk it not being perfection, but as anything, the more we practice, the stronger those intentions and energies will grow.
Exactly.
So, well, this has been an absolutely awe-inspiring and fantastic conversation, Teressa. I thank you so much for your time and your expert thoughts and your experience, and for everything that you've brought here to our Changemaker podcast today. And I would love to give our listeners a way to connect with you. Take a look at that Lies That Limit book that has been so transformational for so many. So would you please share what is the best way for our listeners to connect with you?
Thank you. And let me say that it's a gift to connect with you, Kimberly. You're doing such great work in the world, and I want to acknowledge and honor that.
Thank you.
So people can get my book, Lies That Limit, Uncover the Truth of Who You Really Are, on Amazon. They can connect with me on Facebook at Spirit of Purpose. On LinkedIn, you'll find me at Teressa Moore Griffin. And on my website, spiritofpurpose.com or tmgspeaks.com, you can sign up for my weekly podcasts, which are broadcast on KYW News Radio in the Philadelphia market, where I offer tips, just helpful tips around leading in the workforce and leading self.
Amazing. So there are multiple channels. You are a very, very busy, fruitful, producing business owner, and you have so much wisdom and sage to bless our world with. And so I couldn't support you more. And thank you again. And thank you, our listeners on the Changemakers podcast. We air shows very frequently with extraordinary individuals who are making real change in the lives of others, in our worlds, and in themselves. So until next time, keep making change.